This is a short screencast to explain how to install Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated on your site. Here I have a vanilla Shopify development store. This store has nothing in it so far, so there's no products, no categories, nothing. I've installed Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated, and I'm going to take you through the process of populating a few categories and setting up your breadcrumbs so that you can see that. So I go into apps. I've got one app installed, which is Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated. If I click into this, it's pulled down my menus. These are the menus that live in Shopify navigation. So if I go into Online Store, Navigation, you can see that I've got two menus in here, Footer and Main Menu. If I go back into the app and refresh, I can get an up-to-date list of the menus I have, which of course is just the same because I haven't put anything in it. So the next step is to actually start creating some categories. What I'd suggest here is going back into the menu navigation. I'm going to have my categories displayed from my main menu. You can have your categories displayed from whichever menu is most appropriate. You just need to select the top level category, and that's what we're going to do next. But for me, I'm going to say categories is a menu item inside main menu. I'm then going to create a menu with exactly the same name, categories. Very important that it doesn't have any space or tabs before or after the name, otherwise Shopify won't match it. And then in categories, I'm going to create a few menu items. I'll kick off with 4, and these can be technology, photography, home audio, and film and TV. So far I'm just leaving those so they're linked to the homepage. When I set up the collections and put products into those collections, I'll need to come back in here and actually change these links so they point to the collection in question. For now, I'm going to just leave them all pointing to the homepage. Save that and go back into navigation. So now I've created a third menu, categories. It's linked from the main menu. And if I go back into the Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated app, the Breadcrumbs admin page, refresh that, then what we're going to see is a category tree emerging here, where before we just had two menus with items in them, we've now got the main menu with several subcategories in it. Over here on the left hand side, I can set out what my top level category is. I want my category tree to be descended from categories, so I'm going to select top level categories. It re-renders this menu on the right, and you can see now it's just got my 4 categories in there. For the sake of completeness, I'm actually going to go back into the Shopify navigation. This is a cycle I'd recommend you go through several times. Rather than doing it in one big go, I recommend doing it progressively. So this time I'm going to create a technology menu, and within technology I'm going to add a few menu. So these will be computers, mobile phones, and peripherals. For the sake of the screencast, it doesn't matter what your categories are. Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated can be used for any category tree, irrespective of what the content of the categories is. I'm just illustrating this with technology and photography because that's what I've done consistently across the demo sites. So again, I'm going to save that menu, go back into the navigation, and now I can see I have 4 menus in here. Drift back into the Breadcrumbs admin page, refresh, and now we'll have our 4 top level categories, but our 4 first level subcategories, because our top level category is categories, and then the technology has 3 subcategories: computers, mobile phones, and peripherals. The next step is to create a collection for each one of those, and it's into those collections that we're going to be putting products ultimately. So if I go to Online Store, and it's under products, I think products, collections, there's only the homepage collection at the moment, so I'm going to add a collection. And now I'm going to go through the process of creating a collection for each one of those. So photography, I could add a description in here, or I could add an image, all of which would be nicely rendered when we looked at the collection page with all the products on, but for now I'm not going to do that. Equally, I could go through and set up the conditions by which I want to automatically include products based on perhaps tags, or I could manually select the products I'm going to put in here. But again, for now I'm just creating the basic collection and leaving it as it is. I will edit the website SEO, so I make sure that I have a nice structure here at the bottom. I'm happy with photography being my top level there. So save that collection. And then now back to collections, add another collection, this time for technology. I'm going to edit the title here because rather than having computers on its own, I'm going to put it underneath technology. Unfortunately, within Shopify, it's not possible to use slashes within the URLs because this has been changed. Yeah, so if I try and put a slash in here, Shopify actually changes it out for a dash. It's just something, or a restriction, if you like, of Shopify, that it doesn't allow slashes within its URL constructs after the actual base thing. So this is all controlled by Shopify. This is the bit we control here on the end, and as you can see, that's got a dash in there now, even though I put a slash in. So I'm just going to create the remainder of the collections under technology. Great, so if I go back to my list of collections now, I can see that I've got a good set there. The collections are named consistently, and they're named exactly the same way as the menu items. That's not absolutely essential, but I find it very helpful because now our next stage is to go into the online store navigation and to link together each one of our menu items in here with the appropriate collection for it. So I'm going to select collection, and because I titled my collections in exactly the same name as my menu items, it's very easy for me to go through and select the correct one, knowing that I've got a good match because the name is the same. Photography, home audio, film and TV. So that covers the top level, the categories menu. Now within that I created a subcategory called technology. So I'm going to go to the technology menu, and here as well set up those collections and make sure they match mobile phones. And finally peripherals. Save. Anytime we make a change to the navigation, we need to go back into the app. So breadcrumbs admin, refresh, and even though our category list will still look the same, i.e. there's still 4 of these first level categories and 3 subcategories within technology, if you notice now in the bottom left hand corner, the links to each one of these are actually pointing at the relevant collection, which means I can click on one and go and look at that page. Now what we're going to see is an empty page. This is the technology page, and unsurprisingly it's empty at the moment. There's no products in here because we haven't added any products. The menu we're seeing here is just provided by this basic theme. This is the default Shopify theme, and if I go through these categories, you can see that these first level categories are all showing there. What I want to do though is go back into the app and select computers. And if we look at the computers page, you notice it looks very similar to the other pages we've seen so far. The problem here is this, the breadcrumb. The breadcrumb only shows the top, home, and the bottom, category. It's missed out the fact that computers sits inside technology, and that's because we haven't installed our breadcrumb yet. This is the default theme breadcrumb. It's very common in Shopify to see breadcrumbs like this, and this is the reason why Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated exists, because what we want to do is change out this breadcrumb for a category aware breadcrumb, one that will actually identify that home goes to technology and then computers. So back to the app. Exactly as I've just explained, this panel on the left-hand side says that we haven't deployed our breadcrumb yet. What it's suggesting we do is we open up the current theme, we select the appropriate liquid file, and then we use this embed to actually put the correct breadcrumb and then have a look on the live site to make sure we like the way it looks. So I'm going to click on this link, which will take me to the current theme. Yeah, Launchpad star. I'm going to edit HTML and CSS. Great, and I'm going to go to collection.liquid, which is the liquid for the collection page. Here you'll see there is this include breadcrumb. This breadcrumb is, as I say, the breadcrumb that's included by default in this theme. If I scroll down into snippets, I can have a look at it. Breadcrumb.liquid. Here is the liquid code that produces that. Now that's fine, but it will only work for us with the, as I say, the top and bottom categories. If we want a full breadcrumb, we only need to change it out and use a different breadcrumb include. We want to use this one, which is the one that comes from Breadcrumb Uncomplicated. To do that, we go into our collection liquid. We change this bit of code for this one. So we take out breadcrumb and we use instead the Breadcrumb Uncomplicated code. Now if I save that asset's been saved successfully, and I can go back into the app. The next and final stage is to look at the live site. And so we go to the live site, and here we are, familiar, we've been here before. These are the categories, and these all look exactly the same, because first level categories, of course, don't have any intermediate categories. So technology sits right underneath home, and that's fine. However, if we now go to computers, we can see computers sits underneath technology, which sits underneath home. That's as far as I'm going to go in this screencast. I hope that gives you an indication of how to both set up categories and set up Breadcrumbs Uncomplicated. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, it just remains for me to wish you the best of luck with your store.